The Valley of the Blind. H.G. Wells adapted in a story fashion an old legend preserved by the people of Peru. They tell the story of a group of their people who 14 generations ago retreated to a closed valley at a great altitude in the Andean Alps, where they lived by themselves cut off from the rest of civilization. Due to the effect of great altitude and contagious disease, they gradually lost their sight till the whole people became totally blind. Their life went on, however, as they developed their other senses and adapted to the situation. They could hear when someone approached and recognize the person by the sound of his steps, and tell his moods before he spoke by the beat of his heart. They could find their way by the feel of the road and could tell when the crops were ripe by the fragrance of the fields. They were a happy people. Once, however, their happiness was threatened by an unexpected event. A chance explorer lost in Andes happened upon the Valley of the Blind and, seeking his own survival, established contact with them. The newcomer soon realized that he was the only sighted person in the company and decided to stay in order to help them with his sight to lead a better life. In the process, he, of course, would become the leader of the group, as among the blind, even one-eyed man is a king. He had two eyes and wanted to prove to them the advantage that gave him. But to his surprise, he could not convince them. He devised proofs, but they did not work. He asked them to surround him in a circle, and he would escape walking stealthily through a gap between them. But their ears were exceedingly sharp, and they closed ranks before he could get through. They outran him in the open fields, as their ears could pick their way faster than his eyes, and they could collect faster the fruits of the trees, as they sensed its ripeness by smell and touch with greater speed and accuracy than he could by sight. In fact, the experiment backfired, and to the explorer's irritation, they came to consider him as a sick man, and his sightfulness as a bodily defect, and hindered the natural development of his senses. For them, he was a handicapped, and as such, they treated him. Meanwhile, he had fallen in love with a girl in the group. The girl was blind, of course, but he thought that once they married, he would take her back to civilization, and medical treatment there could restore her sight. But things worked otherwise. When he asked the girl, she answered, "I also love you and want to marry you. There is, however, one difficulty. I have consulted the elders of our people, and they have no other problem except that, as you know, and pardon me for mentioning it, but I hope you won't mind. You have an eye disease which has taunted you and your senses. And I don't mind personally, of course, but they worry that if you marry me, your disease may spread among our people, and we may all become infected and lose our health. Now, there is a remedy for that. And since you love me so much, I know definitely you will be ready for it. There are some very skilled surgeons among us. They will perform an operation on your eyes, and they will become normal, and then we can marry. The operation is not painful, and its result is guaranteed. You will then be like one of us. You will develop fully like a true human being, and we shall marry and be happy. They are ready to perform the operation tomorrow. For your sake and for mine, won't you accept? The explorer thinks through the night. He has understood fully the import of the girl's words. They want to make him blind. The operation is the removal of his eyes. They want to make him normal. And normal for them means blind as they all are. It almost makes sense to the man who has seen how they function with their own limitations and who is now deeply in love with the blind girl. In the darkness of the night, where blindness and sight merge in a common shadow, he becomes ready for the sacrifice and accepts the test of his love. He will willingly become blind. But the early morning brings the first rays of the rising sun to play upon the myriad hues and colors of the enchanted valley, the beauty of its hills, its meadows, its rivers, its flowers awakes all at once with the irresistible charm of virgin nature at the break of the day. The man looks in wonder, takes in the full canvas of fresh scenery, tries for a moment to say goodbye to it all, but finds that he cannot. He will not be blind. He wakes up at last from the slumber of his romance, feels desperate enough to foil this time the vigilance of the blind guards, and escapes into safety, into the world of life and colors that was his own, far from the valley of the blind.